while they were in the womb. And we have in Genesis chapter 25, there we have the two people have been married for 20 years, Jacob and Rebekah, and they had no children. And Rebekah got to fussing at her husband that they didn't have any children. He said, "Who am I, God?" And then he began to pray to God, and God heard his prayer. And so his wife became pregnant with a baby, they thought. But then there was so much movement that she went back and said, "God, what's going on here?" And he says, you're going to have twins. 2 nations are in your womb. And see, that is perhaps the greatest tragedy that abortion is. It not only kills the baby, but it kills ensuing generations. And there's about 10 different people. We mentioned Isaiah, we mentioned Jeremiah, we mentioned Jacob here. We could mention Isaac, we could mention David, we could mention John the Baptist, we could mention Josiah, we could mention Samson. All of those men were born in answer to a desperate cry from that generation. Every one of them was raised up to fill a position to answer the prayers of the people that were in bondage and to bring about a spiritual awakening, to turn a nation from destruction back to the paths of God and salvation. Now, we have in the life of Moses where the devil, the father of abortions, Bible says he's a murderer and he's a liar. And the abortion industry is based upon killing and deception. And so he's the father of abortion. And here the children of Israel were in a situation that was unbearable, and they cried out, and God began to send little babies. And Pharaoh began to have them killed. But he was unable to kill Moses. And Moses, even though he had a struggle, he became the great preacher and leader, one of the greatest men that ever lived. And the primary purpose of abortion is to stop people that would come into the world that God is sending, that would be like our founding fathers, that would pledge their lives, their wealth, and their sacred honor. Let's go a little further here. So the reason, let's turn to page number 3, because I don't have time to go through this. And I did take time, and we had to thank Adam and Donna and Sister Allison for putting this outline together. But here we will look, but we must ask next, is killing the unborn the same as killing the born? Is abortion murder? All right, murder is defined in several dictionaries as the intention killing of one human being by another and to kill or slaughter. In the Old Testament Hebrew, New Testament Greek, murder was described to take an innocent life, to dash to pieces, to slay or slaughter. Exodus 20:13 in the 10 Commandments of God, we usually quote, "Thou shalt not kill," but the original Hebrew and Greek, God used, "Thou shalt not murder." Thou shalt do no murder. This is why in Exodus 20:13 God tells us not to murder. Then in the very next chapter, Exodus 21 and 12 verses 14, God tells us to use capital punishment when the laws were given. That is to take the life of those who shed innocent blood. That is why, and then we have also going back to Genesis 9:6, we used that already, and so look please down to the place. There is a vast difference biblically between shedding innocent blood and guilty murderers or manslayers being put to death. It's one thing for a little innocent baby or someone here in Espanola to be killed by someone. It's another thing to put manslayers and murderers to death. The law, thou shalt not murder, applies to innocent blood, to victims. The capital punishment is toward those that have shed innocent blood. The Hebrew word that it meant kill, but only one that means murder. There are 9 Hebrew words, 9 different words. If you would read through the Old Testament for killing, but there's only one word for murder. God's very careful to make that clear. Then in the Greek New Testament, there are 5 words which means killing, but only one that refers, thou shalt do no murder, 10 Commandments. So now look at the next statement here. God commands us continuously not to shed innocent blood. At 30 days, 1 month after conception, the unborn child already has blood circulating in his or her veins. Just 28 days. That little person already has their own blood. Oftentimes it's different from its mother, different type of blood. And the Bible says in Leviticus chapter 70, verse 1, for life of the flesh is in the blood. In Proverbs 6 and 7, among the things that God hates are hands that shed innocent blood. And we have in Deuteronomy, cursed be he that taketh reward or get paid to shed an innocent person. God warns Jeremiah not to shed innocent blood in that place. Psalms 10 and 8, God said the wicked murderers of innocent in secret places. And in Isaiah 59:7, they make haste to shed innocent blood. Otherwise, God is just saying that we'll look a little further here. We could go down and read a lot of verses, but I want you to skip down on page 4 to Numbers 35:3. That's about 10 lines from the bottom. Numbers 35:3. God tells the people, ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Said the land cannot be cleansed. And here we are. In July, I'll have preached 60 years. And it puzzled me to no end why, over that 6-year period, when I first started preaching and when I was in the 20s and 30s, I preached revivals where we'd have 500 people saved in one in 2 weeks. Maybe it was 17 days. I've had 2 or 3 revivals, 3 or 4 revivals where we'd have 300 to 500 saved. And the church would double in size. I wonder